Hello again. This is eNCA on DSTV Channel 403. I'm Dan Moyane. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us this hour. Now, as new COVID-19 cases are increasing, so do concerns of further possible lockdown restrictions. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to give another update on the situation over the coming weekend. But it's the end of the year, and for many industries, a chance to get back on their feet. The hospitality and events industry especially has taken a big knock. Are they seeing a lot of cancellations of planned end-of-year events, and how do they plan to manage this situation now? Well, let's discuss this with Glenton de Kock from the South African Association for the Conference Industry. Mr. de Kock, good afternoon. Just a few weeks ago, the numbers were down. And for a couple of weeks, we're seeing this decline until Omicron came around. One would have anticipated that many people were planning events, like we've seen the Rage events that were planned in Durban, and companies in particular for their employees, their staff, kind of end-of-year functions. Have you seen a lot of cancellations?
Dan, good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers, and thanks for having us on the show. Unfortunately, we have a SNAP survey over the last couple of days have indicated that on average we've seen about 65% cancellations across the country, and that varies from city to city or town to town. And also it depends on where the organizer was or specifically where the client was. So unfortunately, we've seen a huge percentage. Just to give some additional insight as part of that SNAP survey, the coming 3 months, and you rightly indicated a few weeks ago, the numbers were sort of at a manageable level, which meant that a lot of people were planning not only weddings, end-of-year functions, Christmas parties. We actually had the Intra-Africa Trade Fair down in Durban about 10 days ago that had most of the our African continent colleagues down here, as well as big industry there. And now we're sitting with cancellation. So it is a bit disheartening, but I think as an industry, we've gone through waves. This is our fourth one. We probably will go through a fifth and sixth one. And we've done enough as a sector to ensure that we're able to meet not only safely, but in a responsible manner as well. But the three months into the first quarter of next year is a concern because that cancellation number does increase to about 80%.
Yeah, it's not good for the business. You said the cancellations are standing at 65% of whatever was planned, all kinds of functions as we head towards the end of the year. Is that because of Omicron, can you say? And if so, do you anticipate that number to go to that 80% in the next couple of weeks or not?
And I think what we've experienced as Destination SA is the narrative around not only the announcement, but I think how the world has shut us out. And that has unfortunately caused panic. So the way that in which we are communicating, the way in which we are sort of speaking about the new variant, has brought about an onset within society, and I think within business as well, a bit of fear of the unknown. And one has to listen to the science. And last night you had Professor Karim on, who clearly indicated that we need a bit of time to understand what we're dealing with this variant and future variants as well. So one understands the panic, but it's a bit unfortunate, and that does affect decisions that companies have made, those that have cancelled. We've called for postponement and not cancellation, specifically around, we understand obviously companies want to have the end-of-year functions and that, but if it's a business event, a live event, let us postpone it or let us look at what the protocols that we have and have put in place in the last 21 months. So as an industry, we've ensured that there's a set of guidelines. We've worked within the cohort of our social partners within NEDLAC. We've worked with the Department of Health. We've worked with the Department of Labor to ensure that when people meet, they can do so in a safe and responsible manner. And this year is a little bit different, Dan. This year we've got the thing called the vaccination. Last year when our industry was able to meet and engage, there was no vaccination. There was no intent to be where we are now. So we are pushing that we are allowed, and we have discussed this with our social partners at NEDLAC, that vaccinated events should be allowed to go ahead.
Are you confident, just very briefly as we get towards the end of this, from a business perspective, of course, I mean, it's a bloodbath for you if you're going to lose between 65 and 80% of booked events for the end of the year due to cancellations because of Omicron. But are you confident that under the current circumstances, when there's so much uncertainty and unknowns about Omicron, that you'll be able, your colleagues, your industry will be able to enforce the proper validation and verification that people have been vaccinated?
Then at the event itself, and one has to probably look at, and I know that the rage has been spoken about quite extensively, not only on this particular platform, but I think within society. One has to understand that the rigid protocols that have been put into place, not only for that event and any other event that we've organized within the sector as such, is far more stringent and far more onerous on the organizer as well as the attendee. The added advantage here is that vaccinated attendees should be allowed to attend those events. So the process is prior the event or after the event, because we have to be clear and give Rage a little bit of credit. Rage has not taken place. So Rage as an event was not the cause, of the spike in infections. We should actually compliment them in that their rigidness around the protocol was able to flag these issues, and I think they made a conscious and the right decision to then cancel the event, because society has really bashed them unnecessary. But you and I are going to go to a shopping center probably after the show, where there's no rigid testing regime in place at all. But for every event, that even when my last point there is when we allowed spectators back to watch the Bafana game earlier this year, our industry was part of those protocols to ensure that we are able to meet safely and responsibly. And I think we've done as much as we can. We only are urging society to take up vaccine and allow us to get back to some normality going forward as well.
Okay, what you're saying makes sense, Mr. de Kock. Good luck. Hopefully the cancellations don't go beyond 65% to 80% at this time of the year. It will be really a bloodbath for your industry. But thank you very much for your time and, of course, supporting the call for vaccinations.